Hello, hello. We're going to wait for a few people to join on in. Glad to see somebody is listening in. I'm tuning in from Nashville, Tennessee. Uh, so waiting to. We're just going to wait here for a couple of minutes, just make sure we can get as many people to jump in on the beginning of this. We're going to have a fun little live today, just talking about American lamb and what you can do cooking over fire. There's so many fun recipes that you can use with lamb. I think American lamb is by far just one of the most quintessential pieces of meat that you could be cooking, especially for like Father's Day, 4th of July, all of these great days, because it really feeds a lot of people and you get a lot of flavor out of it. Hey, while everybody is tuning in, say where you're from. I'd love to see what you guys are cooking with American lamb here coming up in the next few days. Maybe tell me a little hint about what you're going to be using for Father's Day. I know that we are going to be cooking a rack of lamb on Father's Day, and so we got a ton of other stuff coming out. But yeah, so we're just going to take a couple more minutes. If you're just tuning in, my name is Derek Wolf. I run overthefirecooking.com and Over the Fire Cooking, all the social channels, everything in between. Actually, anybody that's out there, I'd love to know if you guys are using TikTok. That's been a fun new one for me, just trying to see how we can get out there and see what's going on. But hey, if you're just tuning in, my name is Derek Wolf. I highly recommend letting me know, one, where you're at. I'd love to know that, where you're tuning in from. And two, really where you are, what are you going to be cooking with some American lamb coming up. So anyway, cool. Guys, we got some really fun stuff going on. Bronx, hey, welcome from New York. We got Georgia. We got some lamb chops coming up. That sounds really awesome. Yeah, we're going to be cooking lamb chops for Father's Day. Making souvlaki. That sounds delicious. Oh man, and just simple grilled lamb. It's really hard to beat. So anyway, and also just I threw it out at the beginning, but I want to hear y'all's opinions on TikTok. So if you guys are tuning in right now, I know that it's crazy. It's like this. It's new. So anyway, I'd love to hear what's going on. Anyway, all right. So let's get started. So like I said, my name is Derek Wolf. I run Over the Fire Cooking. You can find me on Instagram. You can find me on Facebook. You can find me on YouTube. You can find me on all of it. You can also now find me on TikTok. Anyway, go and check us out. Today, I'm hanging out in my kitchen here in Nashville, Tennessee. We are actually inside today. Normally, I cook primarily outside. I specialize in open and live fire cooking. I've done everything that you can think of when it comes to open and live fire cooking, and yet I'm still learning. It is so much fun. I've worked with the American lamb board here for quite a while, and we've done whole lamb a la Sador. We've done racks of lamb. We've just everything. So I'm really stoked to be hanging out with you guys today. All we're really going to be talking about is 3 simple cuts that are just make a world of difference that you can utilize. You can find these at your butcher shop, just anywhere, because they are so easy to cook over live fire. They're so easy to grill in your backyard. And they're really a lot of fun to even smoke or barbecue. I know a lot of people may not even think about lamb as being something that you can smoke or barbecue. So anyway, you have come to the right place if you're looking for some really cool inspiration, things to get you thinking outside the box when it comes to cooking. And so anyway, like I said, my name is Derek Wolf, and let's dive into it. We're going to start with the first of these 3 cuts. So we got lamb loin chops. So I'm going to pan this down so at least you can see the 3 that we got going on. All right. So today we're going to be talking about loin chops. We're going to be talking about shoulder chops. And then obviously the king of it all, we're going to be talking about rack of lamb. But you're not going to, I know you guys want to just stare at that the whole time, but you're going to have to look at my face for a little bit too. Uh, so hey, we got these loin chops. These loin chops are so freaking fun. They're so easy to cook over fire. And the reason I kind of start out with these is because they're so simple. They're like really an amazing first starter for getting into to grilling with lamb, especially American lamb. They're so freaking delicious. I highly recommend it. So one recipe that I really recommend is pan searing these guys. So you can do all kinds of stuff, but you can grill these. Let's see if you can kind of see that a little bit better. Anyway, I don't want them to fall off the plate. But pan searing these are so, so delicious. Really, these are the T-bones of lamb. And the fun part is if you're a guy or girl that really loves good crust on lamb, like getting just that really delicious sear on it, then these are the way, like this is where you need to go for your cut of lamb. So I highly recommend these. One way that I love to cook lamb loin chops is I'm going to lather them in a little bit of oil, and I'm going to season them with salt and black pepper. Also, Jake, these guys are about 1.5 inches, maybe even 2 inches thick, which is really, a lot of them come about that thick. But they're so simple to cook, and they really only take a couple of minutes to really cook. So you're not looking at a ribeye or anything that would take multiple minutes. But I highly recommend these. And so I was just going to talk about a simple recipe that you could be able to be doing with these. It's pan seared. I did it last year, and I have it written on my blog. I highly recommend it. It's overthefirecooking.com. But we're going to lather these guys in oil, and we're going to season them up with salt and pepper. And then we're going to be using cast iron. Yes. So we're going to be using some cast iron. Preheat the cast iron over the fire for about 2 to 3 minutes. Make sure that it's pretty searing hot, maybe adding a little bit of oil in there. I recommend using pure olive oil, but some people, depending on what you can get or what you have access to, I actually really love the crust that you can get off of just natural, virgin olive oil, but it depends. The issue is that with olive oil, it's going to actually start to burn at a certain high temperature. So they have a really low smoke point. So if you want less of that crust, or you just want a little bit less of that, I definitely recommend maybe even getting avocado oil is a really good substitute. It has a really high smoke point, so you don't need to be worrying about getting that pan too hot. But back to these lamb chops. So these guys, we're going to lather them down with a little bit of oil. We're going to season them with salt and black pepper. From there, we're going to sear them for about 2 to 3 minutes per side. And you're going to cook them until they're done to basically your likeness. You can also do this on a pan on the stove top if you don't have access to outdoor grill or anything like that. You can do pretty much any of my recipes inside if you really need to. But we're going to pan sear these, and then this is my favorite part. We're actually going to baste these guys. So basting, really what I mean is we're just going to drench them in butter and garlic, maybe a little bit of rosemary and thyme, and then we're going to add a little bit of white wine in there, and we're just going to baste them over the top, and they're going to be so delicious. That you're going to get that sear on the outside, and while you baste it, all of that juice and that flavor that comes from the butter and the oil and all that, that's just going to seep right down into the meat, and it's going to be super duper delicious. So that's one of the recipes that I have for these guys. Lamb chops, number one. So delicious, so easy to make. I know, I wish I was cooking these right now. Comment if you want me to be cooking on our next live. I'll get outside, I'll break out the skillet, and we can do something really fun and simple. Also, while I'm still going through all this, ask as many questions as you like. I'll walk through each cut, and then I'll answer as many questions as I can about each one. And then at the end, I'm going to come back and just answer as many questions as I can. To be 100% honest, as my wife says, I'm not super great at multitasking. So let's just talk about the cut itself, and then we're going to just jump right into it, and I'll answer as many questions as you want. All right, so when it comes to rack of lamb, Yes, you can absolutely use it in oven. This is a really great way to cook them as well. You can also pan sear them over your stovetop. Basically the same recipe, just not over live fire. So there's really no cop out in not being able to cook these because they're so easy to make inside, outside, just really anywhere. And it's not all that difficult. I mean, all you really need is salt, pepper, garlic, and some butter, some white wine, and maybe a little bit of like whole garlic, some cloves, and then rosemary and thyme. So anyway, number one, super duper easy. Highly recommend it. Hey, if you guys are just joining in now, my name is Derek Wolf. I run Over the Fire Cooking, overthefirecooking.com, and I'm teaming up with the American Lamb Board. We're talking about simple recipes that you can cook over live fire when it comes to lamb. So also, as we kind of go from one into the second cut, make sure to tell me where you guys are at, if you're cooking any really cool lamb, anything that you really got going on, American lamb that's coming down the pipeline, especially for Father's Day coming up. If this is a reminder, there's Father's Day that's coming up this weekend. Maybe that's a good hint. Lamb is really, really great for Father's Day. All right, number two, we're going to go straight into our second cut. That is it's so much fun. But this is a completely different style of cooking. All right, so I'm going to bring it back down to the board. My board of American lamb. All right, so we talked about the lamb loin, basically the T-bone, and now we have shoulder chops. Can you see that? Oh, man. Shoulder chops. All right, so shoulder chops, we are not actually going to be grilling them specifically. We're going to be braising them over the fire. So these guys have so much fat intertwined between the muscle and so much flavor that's still locked in there that quick searing them or like grilling them like a normal steak is not actually going to get all that flavor to come out. It's not going to let the meat kind of render and become as tender as like you really, really want it to be. But these guys don't take them for granted. They are so tender. So one way that we're going to do this is we're going to braise them. As I was looking on my site and kind of thinking about the recipes that I've done, I've actually done lamb shanks that are basically in the same way that I'm going to tell you on how you're going to braise these guys. So what is braising? In short, basically braising, we're going to be slowly cooking them in some liquids and some fats and adding some flavor so that over a long period of time, it's actually going to break down all that fat and that meat, and it's become super duper tender. So one key with braising is that we're actually going to sear these guys off. So that's the big thing. I like to have a really good crust on my lamb. And so when we're braising, it's going to be sitting in liquid for a decent period of time. And so I think that I highly recommend actually searing them off over the live fire real quick and then getting out your actual braising process. So I like to use a hanging Dutch oven that'll just hang over my fire pit. You can see my recipe videos, all that kind of stuff. But it's really honestly going to be very similar to the way I braised my lamb shanks in my recipe, which is just an herb-based braise. And so really it's going to take a couple of hours. And it's funny because a lot of times when I talk about grilling or meat or anything like that, everybody always asks like, well, how long do I cook something? Well, the shorter answer is like, it just really depends. Well, with braising, it does depend, but it's less on the thermometer and all that stuff. It's basically until you can take a fork and just pull meat right off and it's ready to go. So this is really a lot of fun. Using lamb shoulder and braising is so delicious because it feeds a ton of people. You can do all kinds of different variations of it as well. Using fresh herbs, you cannot go wrong using some really delicious fresh herbs. Rosemary, thyme, sage, all of these mixed together, maybe even adding in a little bit of acid. I mean, red wine vinegar, some lemons, all that kind of comes together and helps to break down the meat And as it breaks down, it's going to seep in all those juices and those flavors in the braising oven. And then it's going to just basically break apart until it's super delicious, easy to basically eat, and it's super tender and soft. Making this with a little bit of champ. So champ is just like Irish mashed potatoes in a lot of ways. It's one of my family's favorite little recipes. That goes really well with it. You can do all kinds of stuff on the side with this lamb, but don't let lamb shoulders go to the wayside, because these are so delicious and so easy to use. And so anyway, you can find my lamb shank braising recipe on my blog over firecooking.com. It's going to be a slow cooking process. It's going to take a couple of hours, but super easy, and it's going to become really, really, really tender. Shepherd's pie, yeah, this stuff goes really good with shepherd's pie too. So if you have any questions regarding that, just ask them right now. I love to answer anything. You can do braising, obviously, inside in your kitchen. I mean, you can do it on a Dutch oven like this. You can do it in an oven. You can do it in pretty much any other way, as long as you're able to get a decent amount of liquid in there, and as long as you're able to kind of control and maintain that flame. I like to do it over open fire. You can also do it on your grill. You can do it on your gas grill, just all of the above. Again, no reason to cop out. This is such a delicious recipe. It's something that might even be just a little bit different than maybe something that you probably tried at home. And so I definitely recommend braising some lamb shoulder. So while you're at it, just start asking some questions. I'll answer them the best that I can. And we're actually going to move this off. We're going to do a little demo here in a sec. I know you guys have heard me talk for like the past 20 minutes now, and I had to stop. Yeah. All right. So we've done 2 out of the 3 cuts of American lamb that I highly recommend, especially going into Father's Day, grilling, all of the above. But the last one is by far the king of American lamb, and that is rack of lamb. Rack of lamb is so delicious. The fun part about rack of lamb is that it really can be cooked in just about any way. So cooking rack of lamb, you can cook it on the grill. You can smoke it. That was one thing that I was going to kind of highlight. You can actually smoke rack of lamb, super duper tender and delicious. You can put it on skewers. That's actually been a really fun one. There are quite a few international recipes where you're able to actually skewer through the rack of lamb itself, and then you can be able to cook it over the fire, even maybe taking that grill grate out, and you can lean those skewers on the sides of the grill grate, just to make it really, really fun and kind of like a centerpiece to maybe your backyard grilling experience or anything like that. But you can do it on pretty much anything. You can cook rack of lamb in your oven. You can roast it. You can barbecue it. But today we're going to talk about 2 ways. I've already mentioned them. 1, we're going to talk about smoking it. And 2, we're going to talk about skewering it. So I'm going to push you guys down. And also, do I score my rack of lamb? Let's talk about that. So yeah, all right, so we're in demo mode right now. All right, so we got our rack of lamb right here. And man, I absolutely love this stuff. It's so delicious. Also, just so you know, these rack of lamb, or the actual lamb itself, I'm not leaving it in room temperature. I actually have a cooler right behind me that it's going to be resting in. We're going to be cooking these guys tonight. But for the smoked lamb, what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to score the outside. I would do this because I'm going to actually do a different process here in a second, but I'm going to score the outside of this lamb, making kind of that cross hatch stitch. And if I'm going to be smoking it, that's what I'm going to do. And then I'm going to season it with salt, pepper, and garlic. And then this is where it gets really fun. I'm actually going to make an herb butter paste that would go over the top of the fat cap here. So I'm going to add rosemary, thyme, a little bit of cumin, some minced garlic, and butter, and maybe just a little bit of oil, and mix that together, have the butter just slightly soften, mix that together, and I was going to actually layer that over the top. We would smoke this guy at 225 for about an hour. It really just depends on what you're trying to cook it to. But we're going to cook that guy at about 225-ish and kind of smoke it low and slow so that it really seeps in all that flavor. It seeps in everything that you're really hoping to get out of the smoke itself. If you're wondering what kind of smoke or what kind of wood chips you would use, I recommend cherry. Cherry and pecan, they're both light but a lot of flavor. Maybe steering clear from anything that's super duper heavy in smoke, like mesquite or oak or hickory. But yes, I think that smoking rack of lamb is probably one of the more underrated ways of cooking it because you end up really getting that like delicious center. And if you want to, you can almost basically do a reverse sear method. So you are going to smoke it until the internal temperature is exactly where you want it to be. And then you're going to let it rest. So I'm going to pull it off the smoker. I'm going to wrap it, let it rest for about 8 minutes. And then I'm going to pull it back out, get that fire super hot, and I'm going to sear the outside of it just to get that really, really great crust. So that is a super fun way, just a little side tip that you can make some really delicious rack of lamb. Basically smoking and then doing a reverse sear method. You can sear it off on your grill. You can sear it off inside. You can sear it off in a skillet, really just wherever you kind of have access to. But smoking it. So we're going to score the top part. We're going to add that herb butter paste on the top of it. And then we're going to actually smoke it at 225 till it's done inside. Let it rest for 10 minutes, pulling it off the smoker. And then we're going to sear it for really 1 to 2 minutes in total, just really, really quickly, just to get that crust. Another way that we can actually cook this is we can make it into skewers. All right. So we go back down here. Sorry, I got this rack of lamb. There's a few ways that you can make skewers out of it, but one of my recent favorites is actually making skewers between the rack itself. So we're going to set that over there. Okay. We got our handy dandy knife. Make sure that doesn't fall over. All right. So as you look at the back, you actually have the bone chops here, and then you have these little side bones that are sitting right on the outside. You're going to want to make sure that you can avoid those by actually chopping really close to that bone right through and then going all the way through to make a clean cut. So you're going to come right here and we're going to cut them into 2 bone segments, as you can kind of see. Now this guy has actually has 7 bones. Oh, miscounted. Has 8. Guys, my major was not math, but that's okay. All right. So this is really fun. Basically, we're going to be able to take a skewer. You can use a bigger skewer. You can use a smaller skewer. Really just kind of whatever you have access to. And we're going to push that skewer, if you can kind of see, we're going to push that between both bones until it comes out on the other side. Then we can get this whole rack on here. You see that? So this is so much fun. It is a really easy way to grill them. It looks very different than maybe a lot of things that you have really done maybe in the past, but I highly recommend this. A lemon garlic sauce, something that really complements the fat on the outside, that along with that American meat or the American lamb meat. I highly recommend doing something like that. But skewering them on, you can even get big churrasco skewers. So guys that are like basically big swords. You can get huge swords that you can skewer them, and you can put like 3 or 4 racks of lamb on there, and you can grill them over your, your big actual charcoal grills, or you could even, maybe you want to do this on the smoker. Like, I don't know, whatever you really want to do, but these are so delicious, so much fun. They really are a cool presentation, but it doesn't change the actual cooking process. So you're going to sear them off basically the same way. It does make them a little bit thicker, but you're going to sear them off on both sides, and you're really just going to cook them until they're basically done. So if you're doing it indirect, or you're even doing it offset from the actual coals, so the coals are underneath, and then you actually see the coals, you're away from them, and then the lamb is actually not on the grill grate itself. So you can do that on some hibachi grills, all kinds of stuff. It is not difficult to get it done in the middle. Even though it might look really thick, this is about as thick as you would actually be cooking a whole rack of lamb if you're going to grill a whole rack. So it really does not, it takes just about the same amount of time as if you're doing like a whole rack of lamb grilled over the fire. So with that said, we've gone through 3 meats, 3 American lamb cuts that are super duper delicious. We have the lamb chops, the T-bones, where I recommend doing it pan-seared, something super simple. You can find that recipe on my blog as well. And we have the lamb shoulder chops. These are going to be interesting. We're actually going to braise them. We're going to cook them over the fire in some liquid, maybe even adding some stock, a little bit of beer, maybe even adding some whole onion and garlic and rosemary and thyme really in there to kind of seep in those flavors, break that meat apart until it's just finger pull delicious. And then we have these rack of lamb. So you can grill the rack of lamb normally like you would, but you can also smoke it. Like I said, you could do almost a reverse sear. You could basically cook it at 225 until it's completely like right inside the internal temperature that you're looking for. And then after that, you're going to come let it rest for about 8 minutes. And then you're going to pan sear it off if you want to. You don't have to. But in other ways, you can cut them into 2-bone and you can make them into skewers. Really, really, really fun. I love this. Lamb is so much fun. There's so many variations, so many really cool ways of actually cooking. And, American lamb, I would recommend if you're going to go to your butcher shop or anywhere, make sure that you're getting high quality American lamb because we have some of the most delicious tasting lamb. But all that to say, let's answer some questions. I know I ran through all of this. I'm going to be here for the next couple of minutes answering as many questions as I can. And we can talk out a few things. So keep them coming. I know I'm actually a little behind on answering a few. So let's go back a little bit. You guys have been leaving some really, really awesome comments. All right. Do you oil the grill once heated? So actually, I'm going to heat up that grill. I'm going to let the grill grate sit over that fire. If there's anything extra from the previous cook, or we just forgot to actually wipe off that grill grate, I'm going to let that simmer over the fire and get really hot. And then I'm going to take a wire steel brush and I'm going to brush that as well as I can. I'm also going to probably take a little bit of foil and maybe add just maybe a little bit of oil on there. And I'm just going to brush that down just to make sure that the grill grates are actually well oiled so that nothing really sticks and we don't lose any of the seasoning or the marinade or really anything. But yeah, that's a really great question. Hey, another great tip, scoring the fat, slipping in a little bit of garlic under the fat, garlic cloves under the fat. That's a really great tip. How about braising in dark beer with dried figs? I've never done that, but that sounds really delicious. Yeah, braising. I love adding beer to my braise, especially when I'm using lamb, because darker beers or anything that kind of has that like clovey, rich flavor does really good like flavor profiles to lamb. In my opinion, that's kind of like what we really love. So yeah, adding beer and dried figs sounds absolutely delicious. Have you ever made barbecue pulled lamb? No, I never actually have. But I do know that you can smoke lamb shank, and that once it's really highly tender and ready to go, you can basically just pull it off just like pulled pork. I have quite a few friends that have some really great recipes on that, so might need to. If you're looking for one of those recipes, reach out to me, send me a direct message, and I'll point you in the right direction. All right. Do you ever use a side sauce? Man, I love sauce. There's all kinds of sauces that you can use. It really just depends on the seasoning or the way that you're cooking. I like actually using barbecue sauce with smoked lamb. So if I'm going to smoke really any cut of lamb or using anything like that rack of lamb, I'll like to glaze it over with like a cherry chipotle sauce or anything that kind of utilizes a good sugar content that gives a dark, rich flavor across the lamb. My kind of flavor profiles that I really love on lamb are either like really light and bright, so it's like lemon, garlic, thyme, rosemary, and just like very herbal, herbaceous, and a little bit of acid, or kind of like that like dark and stormy. So we got that. We have the beer. We have some braising going on. I think dried dates would sound really good. Really anything that kind of brings out some really amazing and delicious flavor. Do you have any other tips for the skewer method? Oh, wait, no, sorry. Do you have any other tips for newbies cooking lamb? Honestly, not really, except for the fact I would just try as much as you can. I think starting off with the lamb chops, the little T-bones, is a great place to start. Because they are so delicious. They're really a great price that you can find at your butcher shops. And there's something that you can feel more confident to go and try for the first time and do and see what you can. Maybe you don't, maybe you feel a little intimidated to do like the king. Maybe that's like the rack of lamb for you, or something that seems a little bit more complicated. I would just start with something that's pretty straightforward and simple. My pan-seared lamb chop, great recipe. So I think that that'd be a really good one. Can you cook these in the air fryer? I've never actually cooked lamb in the air fryer, so I have no actual idea. Are there any unique characteristics of lamb versus other meats? Yeah, so lamb, the one thing that is really fun about lamb is that you get the tenderness and a lot of the flavor of some other red meats, but it's a lot more quicker and easier. And I personally think that the fat is sometimes better. So you really can capitalize on something that might even have, when you cook it well, might even be a little bit better for you or a good substitute for you instead of some of the other red meats. Yeah, Jake, I'm getting to that. 1 second. Awesome. Guys, keep asking questions while I'm getting into kind of wrapping up what we're going on. I got two little notes. One thing is the lamb challenge. So hashtag the lamb challenge. The American Lamb Board is hosting a really awesome challenge. Basically, the way that you enter is you're going to be able to cook two meals. One needs to be shareable, and one is cooked at home. And you have to use the hashtag the lamb challenge. And every time people cook, the American Lamb Board will be donating to Feeding America and hoping to reach their $10,000 goal. So definitely recommend getting involved with that. Cooking at home using the lamb. Maybe it's Father's Day. Maybe it's something that's coming up for you guys, this special holiday. But share American lamb. Cook it at home. Use that hashtag. Post on your socials. They will be donating, and there will be some prizes if you get selected. as a winner. You could get $200 gift card to one of your favorite grocers. You could also get that to one of your favorite butchers. So go and check it out. There's more info on the American Lamb Board website, but hashtag the Lamb Challenge. Number 2, because you guys are so awesome, we are actually going to have 2 people that were a part of this live are actually going to win some free lamb. So I'm going to make sure that the American Lamb Board is going to reach out right after we're done with this live. They're going to reach out and confirm who our actual winners are. But 2 winners are going to win 4 lamb chops. Let me double check. Yeah, 4 lamb chops and 1 rack of lamb. So you guys will be able to do your skewers. So make sure that you just keep tuning in with all of these. I know there's going to be a bunch more winners, hopefully, as they kind of go into more of the lives. But honestly, guys, this has been so much fun. I love cooking with American lamb. It's so delicious. There's so many really fun variations and things that you can do, and maybe even a few things that you've never seen before. I'm always learning. I'm always trying to just kind of figure it out. But with all that being said, reach out to me. My name is Derek Wolf. I'm on Instagram. I'm at Over the Fire Cooking. I'm also at Over the Fire Cooking on pretty much any other social network, including TikTok. I know we had that comment in the beginning. But reach out to me if you got any questions. I think that there's so many really fun ways to cook lamb. I have so many recipes on my blog, actually, overthefirecooking.com. If you want to challenge yourself, I have a hanging leg of lamb that's on there, and I also have a lamb al asador, which might be, both of those are probably for people that really want to take their cooking, their lamb to a whole other level. So go and check that out. We will be in touch with the 2 winners of the giveaway that are going to be receiving 4 lamb chops and 1 rack of lamb. But also make sure to enter the Lamb Challenge just to be able to know that you are supporting those and feeding America. That's all I got. I'm tuning out from Nashville, Tennessee. Thank you so much to everybody that joined in. Make sure to reach out to me.